I am. Okay, so today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the probably like loans and reducing balance loans. And as we saw yesterday, we're going to start making payments as well. So we have this combination of, so when we are looking at our formula, we have this combination of, say, growth. So here, where we've got the growth of the interest we're paying the bank. So this is the interest we're paying the bank. And then we'll have minus D, and these are the payments that we're making. And so when we make a payment, we do reduce our balance of our loan. So then when we calculate our next interest, we've got to do the interest on that new balance. So it becomes a little bit like, so you've got to do it recursively, it's going to be take ages. And home loans and that go often for a very long time. So what about if normally a home loan set for 30 years? So if you have a home loan for 30 years and you're making weekly payments, that's going to be a lot of payments. That's 30 times 52. So we're now going to use Finance Solver, and Finance Solver helps us work out a lot of different things. So where we find Finance Solver on our calculator is on a normal calc page, and you press the menu button and you'll see that number 8 is finance and number 1 is Finance Solver. So you can see that's on your instructions there. So what we're going to do, you'll end up with this screen here, and you've got all those letters. So in the sides here we've got it. So capital N is the number of payments. So for an example, I'm just going to show, for an example, if I said that 30 years paying, what did I say, weekly. So say we were going to find out the value of the loan at the end of that, or I don't know, 30 years or something, we'd have to make sure, so N is how many payments you want to be at. So that would be 30 times the 52. And you can actually do that in there. You can just write 30 times 52, it'll calculate it. And we'll have a look in a minute. So we're just going through it. You then have I, and I is the interest rate per annum. Because remember I said banks always say the per annum rate. So that's what I goes in there. PV is principal value, well, that's the way I remember it, or the present value, they could say, but it's the amount that you've got when you're starting the scenario or whatever. So generally at the beginning of the loan, it might be what you're loaning. Now what you're going to see with PV, and you can also see a little bit further down, we have FV, which is the final value, or the value at whatever period of time you're talking about. Okay, so what you're going to see with them, these two numbers can be positive or negative. Okay, when you're putting money and you're putting it into the bank, so that means you're giving it to the bank, it's a negative number. Okay, if the money is coming out of the bank, so the money out of bank, so, and it's going to you, it's a positive. So I always think of it as happy times, the money is coming to you, you're going to have it in your hands, or negative, you've got to give it to the bank. All right. So if you had a look at, if you were getting, so say just for example, if you had a loan, if you were getting a loan, well, PV is positive. Why is that? Because the bank's giving you the money. They're giving you the money to go buy whatever you're going to buy with that loan money, okay? But if you've got a loan, PV will be positive. The final value is what you still owe. So that will be, until you finally pay it off, in a loan, that would be negative, okay? It's until you've paid it off. So it'll have a negative number, and it'll show you what you owe until the end. All right, so you just got to think about that, because different scenarios will change that. If you're just be careful, if you're investing, okay, so you're investing, that means you're putting the money into the bank. So it's a sad day, it's going out of your hands. So investing, PV, would equal a negative number, yeah, because you're giving it to the bank. And what happens when you have an investment? So sometimes you can have an investment and you might take money out to use it. So you might say, I'm investing this, but I'm going to give myself a regular payment. That would be coming back out to you, and then it's positive. In a loan, when you're trying to pay it off, the loan off, and you're giving money to the bank, the payments are going to be negative. All right, so you're going to see all that, so don't stress too much, but I'm just going through that. It's very important that you think about those things when you're doing those ones. You can see we have payment, PMT, so that's why you would have seen me talking about, I'll often write PMT for payment, and that's why. And then right down the bottom we see we have CPY and PPY. PPY is what we've been talking about, how many times a year. So if it's monthly, it's 12. If it's quarterly, that number will be 4. The CPY is exactly the same. So we just, in our scenarios, it's exactly the same, all right, in year 12. In real life, it could be different. And what that is the PPY is how much, say, the bank or how much you're going to pay per period, so you might be going to just do it monthly, and the CPY can be maybe what it's compounding. So it's when you decide and the bank decides one way and you decide another, so they don't match up. So say even though the bank said I'm going to give you a monthly loan, you might have decided in real life I'm going to pay weekly because I want to do it like that because I get my wage and I just want to put my loan aside. So that's those scenarios. We would change those two. We never have that. Yours are always matching up, so you don't need to worry, all right? So let's go and I'll do this one with you on our calculator. Oh, no, maybe not. Let's go and do another one. We'll do an example. Here, I'll go through this one with you. You've got the notes, but we're going to do it on our actual calculator. Okay, so when we've got this new question, you're going to do it through Finance Solver. Every time you've got compounding interest, you can use Finance Solver. So really, you're going to see it when you have payments a lot. It makes your life easier. So anything compounding, you can use Finance Solver. So Johnny borrows 10,000. So what you start doing is you get used to doing, all right, he borrows 10,000. I often write PV positive above these things. To be repaid in equal payments over 5 years, over periods of 5 years. The interest charged is 8% per annum. So they told me the I, and they said compounding monthly. So I write PPY equals 12. Now, they're asking me what are the monthly payments. So what you're going to find that you have everything but one of the things in your Finance Solver. So if you look up here, this 5 years told me that N was 5 times 12. All right, so we want, and always good to write, when they say what's the monthly repayment, put PMT is the question. So you know at the end of it, your PMT is the one you're going to click enter on. All right, so what we're going to do is, you see, we're going to write down all of them. So generally on my page, I've written it there. I start writing them all out. So I go, all right, I've got 5. I generally write them all out first. So I write NI, PV, payment, FV, and PPY. This is how I do it. And then I go through my question. So I know he borrows 10,000. So I start adding them in. So I go, all right, 10,000. I said 5 years. The interest rate was 8. Oh, sorry. I put it in here. This one. This is positive 10,000. And I always like to put the question on that one. So then I know I have to fill in all the rest. So I knew PPY was 12. Now, all of a sudden I look and I go, all right, final value. I haven't really been told that, but if you're trying to pay off the loan after 5 years, what should it be? Final value should be 0. So when you're trying to work out the payments for the loan, you put a 0 there, and we go in and we press enter, and you can see it's a negative because you're going to make those payments. You're going to give that money every month to the bank is $202.76. Okay, so there's that. Now, this is where the questions, you've got to be really careful. they said the total cost for repaying the loan nearest to the nearest dollar. So you remember the total amount you paid, total paid, is going to equal all the payment, the payment amount. The payment amount times the end period, isn't it? Yeah? So if you look at this one, that's why it's 202.76 times the 5 years at 12 months. And that's why they've done 60, yeah? Because it's 5 years at 12 months. So what they totally paid off for this loan was $12,166. So when you asked how much interest did you pay on this loan in full, well, he only borrowed 10,000. I only gave him 10,000. So he has paid extra this thing. So the extra amount, isn't it? So the extra amount that is paid is $21.66. So that's the interest charge. Okay, with this one, let's go through it. So an amount of 150,000 was borrowed for 25 years at an interest rate of 6.8% per annum, compounding monthly. So they told you a little things they told you PPY was 25 years. So that's N can be 25 times 12, and this was your PV, and it was borrowed, so it's a positive. Okay. So it says, what are the monthly payments? So we're doing the same thing again. So this 300 was 25 times 12, okay? And then you popped in all the thing and you found, obviously, FV was 0 to find the payment, and there you go. In the next question, it says, how much is still owing at the end of 3 years? So this is where we're changing now. So up here, we're only going to do 3 times 12. And remember, put your question mark on the FV. So we're putting FV. So we should be able to fill in everything else. So where we weren't told the payment, we now know the payment. So we're going to leave the payment in there as negative 1041 point. Now, I think you should be changing this payment. There's a little fault here. This payment should be 1041.11. Okay, and you should be putting that into the calculator because that's what you're going to pay. Okay, so you should be rounding it. So even though we found it up here, just round it up when you're trying to find the next one. And you press enter, and you can see there the final value is 142391. So that's how much is owed because it's a negative. All right, so what happens then, and this is what you're going to see, this is when it gets a little bit challenging. They say after 3 years, the interest rate rises. So when you have, maybe write a note, when you have a change in scenario, so this is, when you have a change in scenario, pretend you're starting again. Okay? So it's like we're all starting again. Okay, so it said after 3 years it's changing to 7.2%. What are the new monthly payments? So we're going to have to pretend we're starting again. So I'm just going to go down here. So C. So we are, if we've already gone 3 years and we've got 25, so it was a 25-year loan, we've got how many more years to go? We've got, 22 times 12. So we said 25 minus the 3 years. Okay, so this is our new thing. We know that. We knew the interest rate. They're changing that to 7.2. Okay, the PV, we're going to pretend we're starting again. So what we owed at the end of 3 years is going to be like our new borrowing amount. Does that make sense? So it's positive because we're pretending we're borrowing it again. So that's why that 142391.91, that's where that came. We're going to pretend we're borrowing that again. The payment was the question, because we said, what's the new one? We'd still want to pay the loan off, so FV is 0, and it was still monthly. So PPY is 12. And you can see how we get the new one. So how much extra does it cost to the nearest $10 to repay the loan? So you could look at it. What they did is they saw how much extra you paid on your payment. So you were paying here. So you were paying 35.07 extra per month. Okay, so then they times that over the next 22 years. So 22 years times monthly will give you the 264. That's why that 264 is there. Yeah, does that make sense? Okay, so that's why that's there, and then they found that. So that's how much extra you were paying.